This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
This is a very important rule to bear in mind, especially for this week when we lay in Parshios, Acharei, Mos, and Kedoshim. What do we do when there are two Parshios that are together? Which Haftarah do we lay in? Do we lay in the Haftarah of the first Parsha? Do we lay in the Haftarah of the second Parsha? When Acharei, Mos, and Kedoshim are separate, the Haftarah of Parshas Acharei Mos comes from the Navi Amos. It's a Haftarah of Nechama, Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li. The Haftarah of Kedoshim is a Haftarah from the Navi Yecheskel, Parak Chav Beis, which is a very critical Haftarah, a very frightening Haftarah, a Haftarah that uncovers and reveals the deficiencies of Yushalayim, calling it the city of blood. Hasishbait, Hasishbait. So what's the general rule? So the last halacha in the fourth chelek of the Mishnah Berurah, Siman Tav Chav Ches, the Rama and Sif Ches, the Rama gives us the rule. What do you do when there are two Parshios? Says Rama, V'hamino kisvar uveshar shabsois hashana, kishakayrin shtei Parshios, maftirim ba'achroina. The other Shabbosos of the year, when you lay in two Parshios, you always lay in the Haftarah of the second Parsha. That's the rule of the Rama. When you lay in two Parshios, you lay in the Haftarah of the second Parsha. This comes from the Mordechai in Masechta Megillah. So we would expect then, since the Haftarah of Acharei Mos is Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li, and the Haftarah of Parshas Kedoshim is Hasishbait, Hasishbait, we would assume that this week we would lay in Hasishbait, Hasishbait. That's the general rule that the Rama cites from the Mordechai. Comes the Rama, and the Rama says, no, this week is the exception. Melavad Parshas Acharei Mos Kedoshim, the Maftiron Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim, which is the Haftarah of Acharei Mos. The Rama quotes the Minhagim that the tradition in Klal Yisrael is that this week is the exception to the rule. Even though normally we lay in the Haftarah of the second Parsha, this week we do not lay in Hasishbait, Hasishbait, but instead we lay in Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li. Why? Comes the last Mishnah Berurah in Chelek Dal of Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah points out that the Haftarah of Kedoshim, which comes from Yecheskel, that talks about the Toyavos of Yushalayim, the abominations of Yushalayim, it's such a difficult Haftarah, we'd rather avoid it. Why lane about the deficiencies of Yushalayim if you could lane about the beautiful consolation of the Navi Amos, Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li? Yes, the rule is we always lay in the Haftarah, the second Parsha, but we don't have a choice over here. We much prefer to lay in the consolation of Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li. But says the Mishnah Berurah, if the Parshios are separate, and in Acharei Mos we've already exhausted the Haftarah of Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li, comes Kedoshim, behechrach, says the Mishnah Berurah, we have to be mafter the Haftarah of Kedoshim Hasishbait, because we've already laid Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li last week, so this week we're stuck, so to speak, with Hasishbait. That's the simple reading of the Mishnah Berurah, that we've already laid Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li, and therefore we don't have an alternative when it comes to Kedoshim. My father, Zol Gesundsein, who's a Balkari Mumcha, was Moisef, that there's another reason why when the Parshios are separate, we could lane Hasishbait for Parshas Kedoshim. That's because since we've lain the beautiful consolation of Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li, and in fact the Haftarah concludes with the prophecy in Pasuk Yadad, V'shavti Yeshvus Ami Yisrael, of the return of the Jews to Eretz Yisrael, Ubanu Arim Neshamayis V'yashavu, they're going to rebuild the desolate cities and settle them. V'natu chramim, plant vineyards, drink the wine, plant beautiful gardens, and they will be planted on their land, V'lo yinashu oid me'alad masam, never again to be removed. Once we've heard that beautiful consolation, nothing phases us anymore. Now we're well equipped, now we have the wherewithal to endure this very difficult Haftarah of Hasishbait, Hasishbait. But if the two Parshios fall out together, then we much prefer to lay in only Haloi Kivnei Kushiyim Atem Li. Comes the Lavush, and Lavush argues on the Rama. And Lavush says, no, there are no exceptions. Even when it's a double Parsha, we lay in the Haftarah of Kedoshim, which is Hasishbait, Hasishbait. However, says the Mishnah Berurah, the Bach and the rest of the Achronim right that the minhag is kfar nespashe, the minhag is widespread like the Ramah, and therefore, don't forget, this week is the exception to the rule. This week we are going to lay in the Haftarah Parshas Acharei Mos, Haloi K'mnei Chushim Atamli. Comes Rabbi Kiva Eger, quoted in the Mishnah Berurah. Says Rabbi Kiva Eger, what if the Parshios are separate? And in Parsha Acharei Mos, we didn't lay in Haloi K'mnei Chushim Atamli. It was Erev Rosh Chodesh, so we laid Machar Chodesh. Now it comes Kedoshim. What do we lay in? Do we lay in Kedoshim's Haftarah, which is Hasishbait? Or could we say, well, we never lay in Haloi K'mnei Chushim Atamli. Zok Tehelig Rabbi Kiva Eger a Chidush Noira, that since you didn't lay in Haloi K'mnei Chushim Atamli in Parshas Acharei Mos, Kedoshim we lay in Haloi K'mnei Chushim Atamli, and we're going to have to save Hasishbait to some other time. That's how much we would like to avoid reading Hasishbait. Tell you another Chidush. In Tavshin Ayin Daled, the Parsha of Acharei Mos was Shabbos Hagadol. Can you imagine that? In Tavshin Ayin Daled, Acharei Mos was Shabbos Hagadol. We learned from the Navi Malachi. Comes Kedoshim. What are we going to learn Kedoshim? Kedoshim we also learn Haloi K'mnei Chushim Atamli, just as Rabbi Kiva Eger was Mechadesh when Acharei Mos we learn Machar Chodesh. That's what we did, Tavshin Ayin Daled. So again, don't forget, this week's the exception to the rule. Don't make the mistake, and appreciate the importance of this beautiful Haftarah of Haloi K'mnei Chushim Atamli, which is such a small Haftarah. It starts Pasuk Zayin, it ends Pasuk Tesvav. It's one of the shortest Haftarahs of the year, so it's only, I believe, 9 Psukim. Pasuk Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yud, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Dalet, Tesvav. So we should be zoicha to see the fruition of this nevuah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.